Six Nations, folks, is not too far away. Once again, I'm joined by my man Graeme from Sports Forecast. Graeme, sir, how are you doing?
Very good, thanks. Very good. How are you?
Good. Enjoying the summer, but over in your part of the world, it is winter, and that means Six Nations is not too far away. How are the excitement levels?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was saying earlier, Christmas is over, but the fact that it's a long, dark, cold January, things are it seems to be starting earlier every year, but the fact that it's starting actually in January, 31st of January, is definitely something to look forward to. And Scotland kick off with 2 home games, so I'm going to go to both of them. So yeah, definitely Edinburgh will be buzzing. I'm looking forward to it.
It's that best time of year, isn't it? Because everyone at the moment is still in with a chance. Nobody's locked in for the spoon. Everything is still on the table.
Exactly. That's it. I mean, yeah, especially for the Scots, we're all equal. We've got a chance. We could win the Grand Slam. So everything's still to play for at the moment. So yeah, that's why we haven't lost it all yet. So yeah.
Nice. Now, we are going to go through some of your dashboards and whatnot. We have had a quick chat prior to coming on here, but my gut feeling going into this before we chatted was basically it seems to be between France and Ireland for the title. It feels like Scotland and England are the kind of dark horse role, and it feels like Wales and Italy are kind of in the battle for the spoon. Is that kind of played out with what your algo is saying?
Exactly. There, you've summed it up perfectly. As you can see, Ireland are the favourites, although there's not a huge difference between the top two. You can see Ireland and France. You have to add these. This is the Grand Slam chances and first place chances. You have to add the two of them together to get obviously the overall title chances. So you can see Ireland in there at sort of 41%, mid 40s basically. France are around about sort of mid 30s basically. But there's a clear top two between those two, which is probably fair. I think. I don't think people would have too much to argue about that. They've been the best two sides in the Six Nations over the last few years. So yeah, Ireland are the favourites, so mainly because they have their two most difficult fixtures, which would be France themselves and England at home. So Ireland have got 3 away fixtures, but the two most difficult ones are at home, and so for that reason, they are the overall favourites. And again, why they've got, I suppose, if you look at the Grand Slam chances specifically, why they are
such massive favourites, eh?
25% chance of the Grand Slam compared to France's 7% of the chance of the Grand Slam, because they've got the most difficult fixtures at home, and home advantage is extremely important in the Six Nations.
So for anyone who hasn't seen the algo before, anyone who's kind of new to it, because we have done this for a couple of years now, that big chunk of Ireland with the kind of best chance of the Grand Slam is certainly not saying lock in Ireland for the Grand Slam.
No, exactly. So I mean, it's obviously 25% chance. It looks, you say Ireland are the favourites for the Grand Slam, but actually, if you flip it around, I mean, if you add up all the Grand Slam chances, I think it comes to just under 50%.
So the favourite is no Grand Slam.
The favourite is no Grand Slam, and indeed, we do a lot of comparisons to the bookmakers. And if you look at the bookmakers, if you just scroll into this section here, so this is you can see our chances for all the teams here adds up to 100%, and these are an average of the bookmakers' odds, and it doesn't add up to 100%; it adds up to 110%. That's the bookies overround. That's how they're always making profit.
One step ahead. Yep.
You can see that comparison therein. And if we move to the Grand Slam chances in here, you can see our favourite for it is 63% chance of no winner. So similar to kind of the way that in football, I think people always forget about the draw, and that's always something in betting. People forget about the draw. I think when people are asked who's going to win the Grand Slam, they forget that actually nobody is quite a good answer. And if you look at the odds for that, we would this is our comparison to the bookies and trying to spot any opportunities in there. Basically, we'd say that actually it looks like quite good odds are being offered on nobody winning the Grand Slam, because we think it's very likely. The bookies think it's marginally less likely, and therefore these are good odds. Basically, similar to we think actually Ireland winning, they look like quite a good bet at the moment, because we give them 40% chance of winning. The bookies are around about 36%, and therefore that's what's called a value bet, basically. So we would recommend looking at that. So Grand Slam, Ireland. So Ireland to win, but no Grand Slam would be quite a good bet at this stage, I think.
Okay. Can we have a look at Ireland's fixtures just to see why they are? Because you mentioned they've got the slightly easier draw in terms of like the kind of home and away stuff.
Absolutely. Let me just navigate back.
Yeah, their first game I think is England at home.
Yep. My internet's just frozen. Hang on a sec. So I'll just talk through them from memory. They've got England at home opening weekend, and then they go to Scotland in Murrayfield.
Now we haven't seen the lineups, obviously, because the squads are only just kind of coming out now. But obviously, Ireland's having a coaching transition at the moment with Andy Farrell off with the Lions. Now, again, for anybody not familiar with the algorithm, that stuff's not being taken into account, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, my website's frozen. I can't navigate to it at the moment. But
it's okay.
Yeah, it's basically the algorithm looks at, we've got our own set of rankings, which we use which are different from World Rugby's rankings, which we think sort of reflect team strength a little bit better. It looks at a few other things like scoring patterns in matches, head to head. Home advantage is a big one, so we optimize for home advantage. But it doesn't take into account the squad lineups, obviously, because at the moment they're not out, so you can't see that. And it also doesn't take into account the coaching lineups and things like that. So you can see here we've got the predictions for Ireland. This is the results. Sorry, predictions are still loading. The Ireland's kick off with England at home. I mean, they've beaten England relatively comfortably at home over the last few years. I think Ireland have 4 from their last 5 against England, which was they obviously lost last year in the Six Nations. But apart from that, they've generally won most of their matches against England. So they are favourites against England in that opening weekend. They then travel to Scotland. And Ireland have very much had Scotland's number in the last few years. It's been a Scot to see that. I'm just going to see if I can navigate to a different section so we can see the predictions. Let me just.
Sure.
But they have very much had Scotland's numbers at the moment. And so even though I think the prediction is that I think it says it could go either way.
We had a quick look at it just before we started, and it seemed to be pushing it as a relatively close game.
Yeah, and you can see here, I'm just going to navigate. So this is the back end of it, so you can see them all in here. But it was pretty close, actually. I think it was like 60-40 in favour of Ireland, and the forecast was it could go either way. And as a Scot, I find that a little bit surprising, given that we've been beaten, at least 10, 11 times in a row by Ireland at the moment, I think. But I think it's maybe saying that Ireland, so you can see down here, yeah, there it is, 60-40 pretty much. So it could go either way. So that's probably closer than most people would think, I think, in terms of Ireland. Now, as I say, I'd probably, I would be less confident than that on that. But it's
as a Scot who's had the pain of Ireland constantly winning for the last how many years.
It's saying Scotland have got a reasonable chance. I think it's probably maybe a bit of a reflection of the autumn. Ireland didn't have as good an autumn as we might expect. They obviously lost to New Zealand. They didn't put Australia or Argentina away as comfortably as we thought they might do. Scotland had quite a good autumn. They won their games quite comfortably. So yeah, maybe. And as I say, the algorithm has long been proven better at this than I am. So it's still saying Ireland are going to win, but it's possibly saying it's a little bit closer than you might think. So yeah, that might be in terms of if you look at it in terms of Ireland's Grand Slam, that is
that's the key game.
That's the key game for them. So you might not pick that beforehand, but yeah, I mean, as I say, I'm not feeling confident about that game, but we will see. But then after that, Ireland have got away in Wales, so they're looking fairly comfortable for that.
Massive favourites.
And obviously, again, away in Italy, back for that. But then, what you might have said would be the big game would be the French game in Dublin And it's relatively confident on Ireland because France haven't won in Dublin for a while, and they certainly haven't won
Mm.
often in Dublin. So yeah, it's maybe not as close as you might think, but I think it's nice to have that big game in the fourth round. It's getting close to Super Saturday. There could be a lot of jeopardy on
Sure.
it. It wouldn't be surprising if Ireland and France were both unbeaten at that stage.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that big game at that stage of the tournament, I think, rather than I think in previous years we've had it in the first game.
Yeah, I think last year was the first week, and then Ireland ended up giving France a bit of a surprise kind of walloping, and then that kind of set the tone for the rest of the competition. So you're right, the fact that we get to build to it should make it a kind of pretty spicy meatball come round 4. I'm just
Yeah.
looking at France's fixtures as well. It says their second round match against England at Twickenham looks like a bit of a spicy
Yeah.
one as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's saying France don't really travel well. That seems to be maybe the conclusion of the algorithm at the moment. Obviously, you can see their home games relatively confident, but then they've got 3 away games, and that's tricky. Obviously, say in the Six Nations, and that England game, that is it's favouring France slightly, but they said it could be close. But I think there's a little bit of France definitely had a hangover from the World Cup. As you said,
Yes.
they took a bit of a hiding from Ireland in that opening game at home last year,
Mm.
which I think was a bit surprising.
And
And
no Dupont in that game, as much as one
definitely
man
no
can be
Dupont,
talked about.
no Dupont for most of the year, obviously.
Yeah, basically.
There's an element of that French team was probably not the French team we've become used to, and I think they clearly were back in the autumn. They were phenomenal in the autumn, beating New Zealand. They Who else did they have?
They beat
They
Argentina, I think.
Argentina and everybody fairly comfortably. So they look like they could be back. So maybe it's slightly underrating France a little bit.
If I
Um,
was to judge based on kind of initial feedback just on social media, there seems to be a lot of love going France's way at the moment, but the algorithm doesn't do love, does it? It just does
yeah,
stats.
it just does the stats, yeah, and it will be judging France on their last year's form, which obviously was potentially uncharacteristically poor. So they might,
Mm.
it will be trending up on France potentially. But I think it's interesting you say there's a lot of love for France because remember, if you looked at the bookies odds, Ireland was still the favourite at the bookies as well. So
Mm.
there's a lot of love for France, but people obviously aren't betting on them. So
Still
it's
putting their money on Ireland.
although it is a little bit closer than what the algorithm's saying. So I do
Right.
think it's interesting when people say, "Oh, we think France are going to win," but then it's like, well, clearly there's some money to be made there if you think that's the case.
Exactly.
Um, But anyway, yeah. So France have got tricky fixtures away from home. So it's quite likely, as you can see, that France are going to get 3 games. They've got a good chance at a fourth, but it's quite unlikely for them to get the Grand Slam. Basically, I think so.
Mm.
They'll be hoping that somebody else does them a favour, beats Ireland somewhere, and then they're going for a sort of points difference, kind of, or a bonus point.
Yeah,
So.
true. What about the battle between the two dark horses of England and Scotland? Is there a kind of favourite, or are they kind of neck and neck in terms of their overalls?
Let's see if this is loaded. Have we got anything? So you can see in the overall, England are marginally favoured. And again, it's just, I mean, Scotland, I think we rank them marginally ahead of England at the moment, but it's pretty much for
It's
muchness in
tight,
there.
isn't it?
Very tight in the rankings. England are rated above Scotland in the overall because of their fixture list, basically. So they have
Mm.
3 home games. They play Scotland. Obviously that would be that game that if all things being equal, we lose to Ireland and France. That game will obviously decide third and fourth, and they've got that game at home, so it's favouring England. But they
You
also,
guys have got such a good record over England in recent years.
I know. I mean, we haven't lost in Twickenham since 2017. I
That's
mean,
bonkers.
that game was a hiding. That was 61-21. Not that I remember it at all, obviously. But then the next game was that 38-all draw, and then we had the COVID year where they won
Mm.
9-7 or something like that. And then obviously 2 years ago was a fantastic game. That was an amazing game going backwards and forwards. Um,
Yeah.
so it's pretty close, 60-30, 60-40. I mean, it'll I mean, never have Scotland had so much chance at Twickenham,
True.
statistically. So it should be a good game. I really hope that we can go and give it a good game, because it's obviously in very recent years it's been good for Scotland, but before that, 1980 was the last game or something. So it still feels unusual to be thinking of going to Twickenham with a good chance, but England have got to win it this year, surely. So it's I mean, I will be teasing my English friends mercilessly if we
Yeah.
win again. But
Well, I was just thinking there are wee Scottish kids running around who've never known, like really little, who've never known a Scotland side to lose to England in the Six Nations.
my sons are perfect examples of that. My eldest son was born 1 week before the 2018 game. So the first game that we won,
Right.
2018. He was born the week before that. So since
Nothing but
then,
success.
we've played 7 times, and England have only won once. Is ludicrous. As I say to him, it's never going to be this good. It's never going to be this good again.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
So yeah,
Yeah.
England have got their fixtures get gradually easier as you go through the tournament, basically. So
Yeah.
they start off pretty much as difficult as it gets nowadays, away in Dublin. So obviously, we're leading Ireland, fairly confident of an Ireland win, 80-20. But then that French game, probably, I say underrating France a little bit. And certainly the last time France went to Twickenham, they put 50 on England last time they went. But
Yeah.
last year in France, it was obviously much closer. England very nearly won that game.
England had so many games last year, not just in the Six Nations, but just generally where they would go
Yeah,
close.
I think it's tough, isn't it? I think it's maybe, as I say, the algorithm's underrating France a little bit. But England were so close to so many games last year, and that's probably what this is saying. That's why this game is so close. People might, you'd sort of say, well, France are good at the moment. They should win, but England were very, very close. So, and potentially that game is closer than you might think. So England are thereabouts, and they definitely could win that game. And then obviously the Scotland game, the following one is pretty close as well, but favouring England more so. And then the last 2 games should definitely win. So
Yeah.
England have got a very good chance of 3 or 4 wins. Okay, again, the Grand Slam, probably not, but they should. If they can pick one of those early games, England or
Yeah.
France, Ireland or France, then suddenly you're sitting there thinking, oh, we've got Scotland at home, and then Italy at home, and then Wales away. So you should suddenly, if you win one of those early 2 games, you're looking at 4 and potential title then. So
That's crazy, yeah. Win the 3 home games and then see what you can do in Cardiff and see how other results have kind of panned out, I guess, eh?
So England have got a good fixture this year, and a nice way to sort of build momentum and things like that. So yeah, if they can pick one of the early ones, don't rule England out. They're right there basically. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But then on the flip side, obviously, momentum's a cruel mistress, isn't it? If they lose
If
both
they
the early
drop the
ones,
first one and then
and
lose at home to France, and then suddenly you've got to beat Scotland, yeah, it could go horrendously wrong, couldn't
we
it?
never beat Scotland, and suddenly it looks like, oh God. So it's that's England are could go either way basically, but it's they're definitely in there, and if they can get a build up of momentum, they'll be up there, and they're obviously a good team. So yeah, and then moving to the mighty Scots.
Scotland's not quite as kind, you think, the list of fixtures?
Yeah, it's I mean, in probably a similar story to England. We've got 3 home games. We should definitely win 2 of them in Italy and Wales. The third game is the Irish one, which, as we kind of said when we discussed Ireland, is closer than you might think, but it's not one I want to be hanging my hat on for a win. But it's it's there potentially. And then obviously we've discussed the England game. Scotland always beat England at the moment. And then the French game, it's leaning France. I do think Scotland have got a better chance of beating France in a way. I feel like Ireland are very
You
much.
guys have had a better record in France in the last, at least in the Galthie era, than I think a lot of other sides.
Scotland line up. If you're talking playing styles way, they line up quite well against France. I always think Ireland are very much like a rock to Scotland's scissors. Scotland are a good team, and you kind of might you would expect them to have beaten Ireland in a way just at some stage,
But
but
they,
Ireland's
yeah,
playing style just does not, like, Scotland are kind of fast and loose, and Ireland just are
don't
control
let
the
them
game,
play. Hey,
don't let us play. Their defense is too good, and it just doesn't line up well. Whereas France kind of play a bit fast and loose as well, and opportunities happen, and Scotland. So I do feel like we've got more chance against France, even though the algorithm doesn't say that. And obviously we're away in France, so it's different. So again, Scotland have got a good chance of 2 wins. They should get 2 wins. They probably should get one of those other 3 games. Which one it is, I don't really know. It doesn't, there's obviously could go either way with a couple of them.
yeah,
So they probably should win one of them, but unlikely to get that 4th or 5th one, basically. Definitely not the 5th one, obviously, because the Grand Slam chances are minuscule. But for Scotland, if you're talking about can they win the title, realistically, you need to get 4 wins. Trying to get that 4th win is going to be difficult, I think, for Scotland. It just doesn't. The fixture, if we flipped it around like last year, we had Italy away and Wales away, you'd say we could win those, and then we've got England at home and France at home. We could win those. So if you're going to kind of go all out for a title, it kind of feels like the even years are better for Scotland at the moment.
right.
But
It'd be nice if Scotland is alive with a title shot come the last week, even if France end up walloping you and it all goes down in flames. I would like to see at least, mathematically in with a shot come the last game.
yeah, well, you never know. I mean, we say we should beat Italy opening weekend, hopefully, and we could beat Ireland. I say it does seem to say it should go either way. It can go either way, so it's closer than you think. And as I say, the algorithm has been proven much better at this than me, so maybe I should trust it.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
then, we're saying we could beat Ireland, and then
Yeah,
England away. So it's very easy to tell a story about how it might fit together.
that's
Um,
right.
but when you get 2 50-50s, you've then only got a 25% chance of winning both of them. So and they're not 50-50s, they're 40% chances. So then it's
Yeah,
even.
exactly. Even
So
slimmer.
it's tough to see, when you're going through the universes of chances. That's why when you check this bit out, the chances are
When
all
you
down.
run the simulation, how many times does it run it?
It runs it 10,000 times.
10,000 times. And how many
10,000.
Scottish Six Nations wins did we get?
So that's 11%, and this would be that. It's not even 2%. So it's 13. So it's got 1,300 of the 10,000 ones Scotland win it.
There
So
you go.
you say a 10% chances.
So you're telling me we have a chance.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, we're there thereabouts, but it's not
Yeah.
looking really likely. But
Okay.
as with everything, it's
That's
very
sports, man. You never know. How's the battle for the spoon looking between Wales and Italy?
well. I think for the first time ever, we are predicting Italy to not finish last.
Is that because they have Wales in Rome?
Yes, almost certainly. Let me just check the rankings. Where we look at that, we do actually rank Wales below Italy at the moment. That is, and even I
Same
think
as
when
the world rankings then?
you look at World Rugby the same. But as I say, I think ours are, if I can a moment say modesty, ours are marginally more accurate. So I do trust these ones. So the fact that Wales are actually ranked below them is fairly significant. But
Well,
they've,
Wales are on a horrendous run at the moment.
yeah, well, 12 on 12, oh, the entirety of last year, and then was it 1 at the end of the previous year as well, I think. So potentially, yeah, it is a real nadir for Welsh rugby at the moment. And then obviously, as you said, they've got that Italy game away from home, so it's doubly hard for them to get off the bottom this year, to get that one win. Unfortunately for Wales, as I say, already on 12 in a row. At the end of this Six Nations, they will have played 17 games, and the algorithm's saying they're probably going to be 17 from 17 losses. 17 losses.
That's not good news for Gatland.
That Italy game is, I think, as being reported at the moment, will probably be defining for him in his
Make or break.
make or break. And as I say, it's backing Italy to win it. Yeah, it doesn't look good for him. But Wales are always a tricky team to beat. They're always, even what was the game in the autumn? It was the Australia game, and I know Australia ended up winning it handily, but
Hmm.
I think Australia went 17-0 up or something, and then Wales at the stage they scored 2 tries, and it was 17-14 or something like that. And he said that Wales. They never they never leave. It's always there for them. There's always a chance. You always feel like
Hmm.
and especially in Cardiff in the Millennium Stadium. You never look at that Scotland game last year when we were 27-0 up, and then we nearly lost it. Like when the Millennium Stadium gets going, there is probably
Yeah.
no worse place to be as an opposition team. So
Yeah.
they have, well, unfortunately, only got 2 of those games at home, and one of them is Ireland. So that will be tricky.
Maybe
Um,
that last one, England. Like, imagine if they've lost all 4, and then you come down to this last game. Gatz's job was on the line. You've got to beat the old enemy at home in Cardiff. Maybe that's the one.
yeah, well, I wouldn't rule that out. And obviously, as you say, it's only leaning England, and Wales are there at 21%, and it will factor some of that head-to-head in, and the fact that England rarely beat Wales by a lot in Cardiff will be factored in. So that's those are the 2 games. If you're looking at it from a stats perspective, those are the 2 games that Wales have the most chance in. But it is obviously this Italian game away from home. But he's picked I mean, he's left out a couple of interesting selections, I think, but he's definitely picked a few players in there. You think that they're going for the wins, basically, aren't they? Faletau's there, back from injury. So there's a few experienced heads in there that could potentially bring it back for them. So yeah, I always find the Six Nations is a funny one. You sit here at the start of the tournament and you're saying, where are Wales going to find this win? And then suddenly after 3 or 4 weeks in, you're thinking, oh, Wales are fine, and
Yeah.
they're going to beat England at home or something like that. So it'll
Yeah,
be
that's one thing I like about the Six Nations. It is genuinely quite hard to predict. I mean, we were just chatting before we started. You mentioned the fact that nobody's ever done it 3 times in a row,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Flick back to this graphic that I had here.
Which
This
just
is
seems
where
bonkers to me. Like the Rugby Championship, the All Blacks won it. I don't remember. I don't even remember how many times in a row. It's just normal, but the Six
it is
Nations is genuinely competitive.
pretty open. Obviously, yeah, as you can see, it generally, I mean, in the last 4 years, Wales, France, Ireland. Well, last 5 years, England, Wales, France, Ireland. We had 4 different winners in 4 years.
Yeah.
Um, so it does flip around quite a lot. And as you say, never had more than 2 in a row. There's never been 2 Grand Slams in a row. So Ireland are going for an unprecedented three-peat this year. It's only been 4 times. So England, could have done it in 2002. France could have done it in 2008. Wales could have done it in 2014. Oh, so there's been a few opportunities for it actually. And yeah, nobody's ever done it. So Ireland going for an unprecedented three-peats. They would say they're favourite to do it this year, but obviously we'll
Yeah.
see. But it's a pretty open tournament. I do always think, yeah, exactly like you say, it's surprising how open it is sometimes.
Yeah, well, after Ireland, I remember when they beat France in that opening game last year with that massive win. They were huge favourites for the Super Slam, the back-to-back Grand Slam, which had also
Yeah,
never been done. And then Six Nations doing its thing threw in a
it
spanner in
derails.
the works when they lost to England. So yeah, it's really
Yeah, it should be there.
tough.
I think the other interesting thing is, despite France's recent improvements, you'd think after the 2019 World Cup, and suddenly France have only won once in the last 15 years.
Yeah,
They must think they're due a few more, basically, based on how good their team is at the moment. You think, I mean, they've been second a lot of years in these
that's
years,
right.
and obviously you got the Grand Slam, but you think they need to start winning a few more tournaments. Basically, there's a real dearth of French wins up here at the moment, and they for the team that's always been second best at the moment. They just have just always hit that second, and somebody else has got first. But they
That's
probably
it.
deserve to have got a few more first places in there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they get on. So yeah.
Yeah. For anyone looking to have a flutter, do we have any
Yeah.
potential options?
Flick back.
You better tell people how it works. You mentioned value bets before, and I've used this tool before myself just to kind of get a little bit of kind of guidance.
Yeah, so if I explain the way the site works at the moment, hopefully it's speeding up a little bit now. So yeah, it looks like it's a little bit faster. So all the predictions and things like that, or you can navigate through. You see the Rugby Forecast homepage. You can see all the different leagues that we cover. Champions Cup's on at the moment, obviously. Super Rugby starting soon, and Super Rugby predictions are
Yeah,
actually,
it's also
so
starting also.
you can
How
see
are my
Super
Blues
Rugby,
looking?
Super Rugby chances, Blues 50% chance.
Look at that.
Right up there. So yeah, so all this stuff is up on Rugby Forecast. So all the predictions, the chances, all these things you can see, they're just available there. The betting, we run betting subscriptions, so you can subscribe to the betting analysis tool. So you can see we've got two of them at the moment. There's a basic one and a premium one. You can learn about them. The basic one is more, as I say, pitched for people like betting for fun. If you're not really too bothered about like religiously tracking things in spreadsheets and sort of like, betting really disciplined. You're more looking for, is there an opportunity out there this weekend? I'm looking to have fun. Then the basic one is probably the one for you. What that does is the kind of thing that we were discussing earlier. It goes through all the different matches. It looks at the comparison between our prediction and the bookie's prediction to tell you if there are good odds or not. Because you should never really bet on who you think is going to win. It should always be looking for a kind of a mispricing, basically. So what we do is we look at whether or not the bookies are offering good odds or not, and then highlight these. So you can see the Pro D2 at the moment looks like there's a lot of matches up. All these ones are highlighted. They're color-coded red. These are bad odds, but it looks like this game, Nevers against Brave, they're offering odds of 11. So those, even though we don't actually predict Nevers to win, the odds being offered are very, very good. So we'd recommend on them. So you can click around and you can see value bets. So you can see all the value bets in here, all the different games. So you can see some of the Champions Cup games and things like that. But if we navigate to the Six Nations particularly, so you can see opening weekend. It looks like there's some value out there. So basically, you can see the highlighted green. So it looks like Ireland to beat England. I mean, it's very, very close at the bookies. 79% plays 76. And the value, it's very small amount of value. So you could place a small bet there. If you fancy a really risky one, it says Wales to beat France and Italy to beat Scotland. We highlight risky ones yellow because technically they're value bets, but the odds are very, very long. So I wouldn't be betting the mortgage on them, basically.
We should never be betting the mortgage, to be fair.
Exactly. To be honest, the recommendation most of the time is don't bet, because as we've discussed, the bookies' odds are very poor most of the time.
That's how it works, right?
So that's how this is working. It's saying most of the time, actually, you shouldn't be betting. But if you must bet, then you should use a tool like this to try and identify if there's any
where there's opportunities. Yeah,
So if
exactly.
you're looking at the opening weekend, you sort of think, oh, I fancy a flutter. Like, what should I be doing? And you think, oh, well, bet on France to beat Wales. That's great. But the odds of them are shocking. You're getting a return of 3p if you bet £1. I mean, it's just...
That's better than New Zealand. New Zealand, it's 1 cent on the dollar.
Well, exactly. And I'm saying you should get... So that's what this value threshold thing here says. So even if you're getting different... if you see different odds to what I see, because I know obviously different countries or people have access to different odds, that's what this is saying. This 1.2, you should be looking for odds over 1.2
to make it worth your while.
To make it worth the while, because every bet is a risk, and you need to be paid to take that risk, basically.
True.
And the odds are just rubbish, so there's no point in taking
them,
basically. You can get odds of 26 on Wales, which I don't think Wales are going to win that game. The algorithm doesn't think they're going to win that game, but technically 26 is, those are big odds, basically. So
the return kind of makes it again worth the while for that level of risk.
Yeah, Italy against Scotland. The algorithm's actually giving them a 12% chance compared to the bookies 9%. So that's again quite a lot of value. And then as you can see, the Ireland one, The payback's pretty poor. So probably in all of them, if you must bet, it would be the Ireland one. I wouldn't be betting much in it though, because the value in it is not huge. So you can see that, and this obviously gets updated, every day. We see new odds coming in. Obviously, there's no odds for week 2 at the moment. Week 2 looks really exciting. Week 1, I think, is fairly one-sided for the home side.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Home ones. If we look at week 2, Italy Wales, that's going to be a crux game for the potentially bottom of the table decider. So
all those games are tasty in week 2.
Oh, exactly.
All
yeah. 50, they're all pretty much 50-50.
Yeah.
And so we'd actually expect to see some good odds. There could be some opportunities in there, basically, because those are always difficult to price. So it could be interesting to see. But obviously, there's no odds available for them just yet. So,
yeah, odds won't be out. We haven't even seen the results of week 1 yet.
So yeah, but you get a free trial. You get a month free trial if you want. So you can sign up, at the start of the tournament, and you can try it out and see what's going on, see if it's for you. There's a 2 cents discount code, which I think
I'll put that down in the thing.
Put down in the thing, so you can get a discount. And obviously, as I say, this is updated every day, so you can see how opportunities change. And especially as we've discussed, this sort of tournament analysis kind of thing as well. If there's any big upsets, we often see the odds move significantly as a reaction to big upsets, but it often doesn't maybe affect the tournament odds that much. So it's quite interesting to see how, maybe if Ireland just beat England in that opening weekend, for example, but they don't look that good, then the odds on Ireland might actually get longer because everybody goes, "Oh, Ireland looked rubbish," but even though they won the game, but actually their chances of winning the title will have increased because
they won the game.
They won a game. So it's interesting to see how those things, will move around basically, and it's interesting to see how the odds often move around that aren't related to what you might expect or what you should say is an actual kind of title defining kind of thing, basically. So yeah, so it's interesting to see how this stuff moves. But you can see the tournament analysis, obviously Grand Slam, Triple Crown, last place kind of stuff, basically. See all the odds in there, and likewise.
I like tracking that stuff because as humans, our brains kind of just tend to often go back to like the last weekitis, like, oh, you were rubbish last week, so you're going to be rubbish this week. Whereas the algo looks at it a little bit more kind of, across the course of time.
Yeah, it doesn't overreact to things basically, but I would always say that, and especially when you're looking at these kind of value bets kind of stuff, it doesn't take into account everything. It's not infallible,
for sure.
Well, if there are things, that maybe happened last week that you think will probably happen this week, and it's 50-50, and I think so. Yeah, you always have to, use your own judgment on top of it.
Exactly. If Antoine Dupont gets injured, if Andy Farrell's off coaching the Lions, all this kind of stuff is
exactly. Yeah. So. I would say never move far from what the algorithm says. So, for example, this Ireland-England game, you might say, well, what's the chance of Andy Farrell, how much effect that will have an effect on Ireland? But is it going to flip an 80-20 game in favour of England?
To a 50-50, probably not really, no,
probably
right?
Not. It might move it down a few percentage points. It might, in fairness, it might make this not worth a value bet. So you might, given that it's very close, it might make it not worth a value bet. So maybe don't bet there, basically. So that's the kind of way I would use it. But with these games, you might say, oh, well, if something happens this week, or, France are a little bit underrated. So actually France are probably a bit better than this 50%. So you could maybe move it up a bit. I don't want to jinx Scotland, but the Andy Farrell effect, it might actually move that, in favour of Scotland a little bit more. I said I do. I'm even if that I'm predicting already that this will come up saying bet on Scotland because 60-40 seems favourable to Scotland, and I can imagine the odds, which are often a reflection of how people bet. People will be betting on Ireland for that game, so I'd imagine it will come up and say bet on Scotland.
It's going to say that there's some value on Scotland, which is going to do your head in.
Exactly, yeah. And as I say, you put it up and it says what it says. As a Scotland fan, I would say never bet on Scotland. If I put in a manual override for this, it would be here's the value bets. if Scotland, then no, or something like
Ignore.
that. So, but that's that's the sort of thing you might want to take into account and sort of think about on top of it, and you can add those kind of things into your own analysis when looking at the site and the kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Like I said, I like it because it takes the emotion out of it.
So yeah, no, it should be good. I'm pumped. It's going to be
It's been good.
A good tournament. Rugby's greatest championship.
There you go. Rugby's greatest championship. What a tagline that is.
Yeah. Oh, that's just to annoy Tony if he's made it this far through them.
I was going to mention him, but I wasn't sure if you'd seen him. But yep, you know what Tony doesn't appreciate that tagline.
Yeah,
but he's a salesman, so I'm sure he can appreciate it.
I watched the videos. I see him. So he had a bit of a bugbear about that. So I just want to throw some shameless bait in for him. And
I'm sure he will bring it up again when I see him in a week or so as we look to preview the comp. But no, cheers, Graeme. It's been good. I will chuck all the links down to Rugby Forecast and the betting analysis down in the description for anybody who wants to check it out. Like I said, there's always plenty of good info there. We've been looking at this stuff for a few years now. You always get a bit of stick for saying when people say it's not 100% right.
That's sort of the point. Maybe I'm making excuses, but I always say there's a difference between a prediction and a forecast. And the prediction is, team, who is it in the Ireland-Scotland game? If we pick that one, because that's some. Everybody's going to, as a Scot and the Irish, it's going to be, So we pick that game. The prediction is Ireland to win, but the forecast is it's 60-40 and it could go either way. And so ignoring the actual game itself, if you just say 60-40, I'd actually expect to get that prediction wrong 4 times out of 10.
Exactly.
And that's
60-40 doesn't mean the team with 60% is going to win.
It's going to win it every time. It means they're going to win it 60% of the time. And actually, the sign that my model is working well is if I do get the game wrong, I should get the game wrong 4 times out of 10, and that's a sign that my model is actually well calibrated. So yeah, there's always there's a chance, like there's always that sort of mindset basically, but it's that kind of idea basically, and it's trying to sort of capture those nuances and talk about them, because if the algo was predicting everything right, then we wouldn't have to play the games. So
yeah, exactly. You probably would be a millionaire.
Well, exactly. Yeah. If it was predicting every game, I wouldn't be talking about it publicly on
exactly right. Exactly right.
But no,
all right,
I enjoy on the stick. Happy to take the stick.
Exactly. Good luck to your lads, man. I hope your boys put it in. I don't know if you saw it, but I said if there's any team I would love to see win it, I'd love to see your lads do it. But they always find a way to break parts at some point. There's a game where you think maybe this is the game, and then
last year was a year I think we could have a really good chance that we should have obviously beaten Italy. We were ahead in that game, and we've found a way to lose. Italy were great, but I think Scotland more so found a way to lose that game. We were careless, and but just on the balance of who's a better team, we should have won that game. And then we could have gone into the final weekend against Ireland, and we'd have been 3 from 4 at that stage, and you have a chance, and you're there. And we actually played quite well in that Irish game. So you could have been there or thereabouts. But the problem was, again, we should have beaten that French team as well. That was that game, that try.
That was the controversial refereeing decision, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was all. But again,
you weren't that happy about that.
We should have. It was, regardless of the decision at the end of the game, we should have done enough to win it in the game. We had the chances in the game. Always just they're always thereabouts. And as you say, they find a way to break hearts. So yeah, we'll see. No doubt we'll do something crazy. I say fingers crossed we get past Italy this year. But then we'll probably beat Ireland at home, England away, and it will be the hype train will be in full flow, and then we'll lose to Wales or something like that.
That would be like quintessentially like Scottish Six Nations campaign. Just as you've done the one that you think you're not going to do, you lose the one that you think you should win.
The game that Wales at home at the moment, you think, that would be a slam dunk. No disrespect to the Welsh fans at the moment, I think they would probably say the same. But that would just be classic Scotland. So yeah. But at this stage, Anything's possible.
Everything's everyone's still a chance.
So yeah, should be good.
All right, man. Well, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for coming along. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, as I said, I'll link all the info down in the thing.
Nice one. Speak soon. Cheers.
Cheers, Graeme.